Good morning, guys. Morning coffee. I'm fasting. Doing good on my fast. Getting ripped. So, I posted a new article on my Facebook and my blog Zanga called "The Aesthetic Mind." Basically, I want to explain what constitutes the aesthetic mind, and what constitutes mental aesthetics from Schopenhauer's perspective. And every time I post something like that, people ask me why philosophy. Well, to be honest, I'm not really a quote unquote philosopher. But I use philosophy as a tool to help my thinking. This person he wrote me on my Facebook. I enjoy reading Schopenhauer, Frank, but what has philosophy done for you or for mankind? Is that a question as meaningless as it sounds? Although I come from a science background, which pretty much would laugh at anything a philosopher would say, thoroughly enjoy reading the works of those like Nietzsche and Schopenhauer and Camus. They seem to get my creative juices flowing. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what is your reason for studying philosophy when he has no empirical framework? Is it just something that tucks in the back of your mind? Well, uh, first of all, if you know anything about the history of science, a lot of those scientists were philosophers back then, or at least their approach was like a philosopher's. A lot of philosophers were empirically based as well back when empiricism wasn't taken over by science yet. Because well, let's face it, everything that philosophers are doing now are sort of just too abstract. They focus on language and death and study of the mind now instead of but still a lot of philosophers that are still science oriented, but in general, whatever the philosophers were doing were science back in the days when there wasn't any advanced science yet. But now that science is taking over a lot of things that the philosophers thought about and had answers, empirical evidence, and quantifiable answers, philosophers just sort of not that its philosophy is dead. Philosophers are pretty much alive, which is that now that philosophers are doing sort of a different thing now. They study language, study the mind, study things that are more abstract. They study about beauty and things like that. There's still a lot of things that can be quantified using empirical evidence, and that's where philosophers come in. And that's that. And there's also the philosophy of science, by the way, and where philosophers study how science, how science is applied and things like that. That's another branch. Anyway, so. But even with that said, philosopher is, to me, more like a tool for thinking. For people like us who aren't scientists and who aren't philosophers, what is philosopher going to do for you? Philosophy going to do for you? Well, first of all, it's kind of like asking from a sprinter's perspective why he had to lift weights, right? Ray Kelly Baggett's book, The Vertical Jump Bible, um, he said that even though a lot of people try to go all the way down, there are a lot of people who are interested in vertical jump don't go all the way down the squat because they think that when they jump, they're going to go down a quarter of the way anyway. Why do they have to squat as the grass? It was the answer is that it's not that you're trying to imitate what you're doing in the weight room into the basketball court or into the football field. It's not that. It's not like that, because you're never going to do this on the football field, right? But what he's saying is that when you go all the way down, more of your muscles gets worked, your glutes get worked, your hamstrings get worked, and that a stronger glute, stronger hamstring, and stronger overall strength is going to be transferred into the field, right, into the court. So that's basically the same idea. Is that you're not doing philosophy so you can apply it directly, although sometimes that's the case. You're doing it sort of just to, like you said, get your creative juices flowing. Get your mind to open up to new possibilities, and that is going to help you transfer to anything you do, really. Because there's nothing more mentally challenging than reading philosophy, right? It's just like it's kind of like weight training for the body. Even though if your sport is wrestling, you still want to weight train, right? You're not going to not want to weight train just because your sport doesn't have bars and weights on it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's just a tool, and it's just a way to help you think, and 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 not even if you're not even that. I mean, just like I always think that knowledge is happiness. That's why I always like to spread like the idea of reading and trying to find out things about the world. It's just that some people think it's ridiculous, but it's just a way like to look at the world differently and to think about situations differently, and that's enlightening because like there's a book by Alan D. Button called The Constellation of Philosophy. I'll post a link, and basically he's arguing for the idea that he's trying to you know uh, he's saying that even though philosophy, he's kind of trying to convince people to that philosophy is like a consolation for whatever hardships that you might have in life. Philosophy can always offer an answer, although sometimes not directly. They can offer an answer in a way that it's sort of like a medicine for the soul, right? Some philosophers do write directly about how you should deal with your problems, but I'm not even that. I'm saying like just wait to look at the world differently, to open up your mind to different possibilities can get you out of situations mentally. You know, you can think about the situation differently. You can't change the situation, right? What do? You change the way you think about the situation, what you feel about the situation. And if you read all philosophy, you can do that easier because you do mental gymnastics, kind of getting your way out of a situation with thoughts. That's really wonderful. And just having knowledge, just knowing things like around the world just makes the world better because the world is just as good and as wonderful as you perceive it to be. And the more things, the more you know about the world, the bigger the world is. Sometimes it can go both ways. It can make you like sort of grim sometimes, but at the same time, it can make you things really wonderful. And not to mention that you can talk to people about it. You can also feed your ego. If you read a lot of philosophy, you talk to someone who doesn't know anything about philosophy, or sort of know but doesn't know as much as you, he's gonna think like, oh, you really, you know your stuff, and girls will be like, oh, the smart ones, anyways. They'll be like, oh, you really have, I really like the way you think. And that's always a plus. So that's all the reasons I can think of. Yeah.